Here we go. Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to get started now. Thank you for joining this first afternoon session. The topic for this afternoon is purposed giving, creating donor happiness through new metrics and motivations. I'd like to introduce to you now Mary Stranglin, Vice President of Personnel Trust Administration for the Northern Trust Company.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Mary Stangland, and I head up the Trust and Fiduciary Group for Northern in Eastern Michigan. And before I get on to introducing our esteemed partner, Ray Odom, who will be talking to you today, we are going to draw two of the names for prizes. Mia Axon, but she may be in an, oh, Mia? She just left? Okay, we will get her. Yeah, we'll find her. Yes, we should have done this before everyone broke out. And Donna Snyder with the University of Michigan. I know Donna spoke today or is doing a presentation today. So Northern is thrilled to be a sponsor, but we are really proud to bring to you one of our esteemed partners from Chicago, Ray Odom. Ray is a Senior Vice President with Northern from our Chicago office. He's also the Director of Wealth Transfer Strategies. He began with Northern Trust in 1980, worked for several years, but then left as a licensed attorney to work in private practice for several years. In 2000, we were lucky enough for Ray to rejoin Northern, and he has done nothing but breed excitement and passion into our philanthropic and foundation practices. He is a licensed attorney, he is a CFP, and this morning, Kathy was talking about purpose, and purpose is the meeting of finding our passion where that passion meets a world's needs. And I think you will find in Ray someone who has truly found in his vocation passion. So without further ado, Ray Odom.
Well, it's a real blessing to be here, and really, the truth of it is I'm kind of happy to be here. And the funny thing about being happy to be here is that I'm actually going to talk about happy, and that's because I think one of the things that we maybe lose sight of, or maybe we have sight of it, but we don't know how to catch it, is the idea that when we talk to our clients, when we talk to our donors, when we talk to the people that we're trying to have a relationship with, one of the things that we really kind of don't talk about is this idea that they're kind of like, that they're happy. Because happy just doesn't feel like something that we can really grab onto. And so you say, Ray, I thought we were talking about purposefulness. And what I've come to discover is purposeful gifting, understanding the motivations and metrics of planned giving. What it does is it tries to set a new paradigm, a paradigm that allows you to just restructure the way your clients, your prospects, your colleagues think about wealth transfer. And that's the key, is to really completely shift the way you think in a way that tells our client, our donor, something different. You say, well, Ray, how could this possibly be? Give me something that helps me get a hold of that. Well, let me try this. You know, people say that what you want to do is to get your charitable organization, your not-for-profit, to be part of the family. So what you want the person to do is think of your organization as family. And most people say, well, that's ideal. Well, let me show you how radical I'm going to be today. What I actually believe is that the right way, if we can get our people thinking correctly, everyone thinking correctly, what they really want to do is get their family treated like a charity. All right, let that sink in a minute. I actually believe that the key is that when you think of wealth transfer, it's not about creating this kind of family kind of entitlement thing. So you're saying, I don't know. I'm listening, but I'm not sure I'm with it. So let me show you how radical this can be by playing a little trick on you. All right, I need you to participate. And you all seem like you're pretty alert, even though we had a big lunch there. So here it is. How many of you in the audience, how many of you have heirs? And what I want you to do, if you have heirs, I want you to stand up. Just make sure, because you have to. If you have heirs, stand up. Thank you. You can be seated. Now, how many of you have no heirs? How many of you have no heirs? Is there anybody standing? If you have zero heirs, you have zero heirs. Okay. And I can tell. Yes. And you know what? All the people who stood up with no heirs, that was a question, and you are the only people that got it right. You are the only people that got it. That's how radical. See, I'm trying to get radical here. That's how radical it is. Because what's the truth? You can't have an heir if you're alive. Now, I know some of you look a little bored. Yeah, I know all of you are looking bored. But I know everybody that stood up. That's why I had you stand up, to make sure you were still alive. And the truth is you cannot. But you say, but Ray, that's kind of clever. But what's the point? Well, that's the point. The point is that when you get this mindset of an heir, that immediately takes you down a path that says entitlement, heir, entitlement, heir, entitlement. Here's the truth. You can't have an heir until you die. In fact, the word legally that you use, because we don't really know what to do, so we have this word called presumptive heirs. And that's what you all were standing up thinking that you have, presumably. But they are no more heirs of your estate than I am. This is truth. And the reality is, you see, that when we have donors and clients and people who are thinking, oh, I know what he's talking about. He's talking about this idea of leaving wealth and leaving money. And that's the key. It isn't. So here's the real concept behind all this, is that when you understand what it is that really gets clients excited about what they're doing, then you can tie in. And here's the issue. The issue is that we're happy when we have control. We're happy when we have control. They can tell you whatever they want to tell you, but that's what it comes down to. And what happens is control gives us this little release of the little dopamine thing that says, I have a desire. I look out there. I try to control my environment to get to that desire. Problem is, each time you get to the desire that kind of gets a little dopamine going, that desire turns out not to be what we thought it was. Okay? So the only thing you can really do is, what you have to do to really get that right is get someone who's been there before who tells you, hey, when you get here, ain't that big a deal. And that actually helps you to adjust your expectations. Well, here's the problem. When it comes to wealth transfer, people think that control means that they have to hold on, and by holding on, that they can actually make themselves feel better. But there's something that makes them really kind of agitated about that. And what makes them agitated is the fact that they know something is going to cause them to have to give up control. And for planned giving in estate planning, it's death. And that fact, and there's a bunch of studies, that fact, death alone, just saying the word death, causes people to actually retreat from the conversation, to retreat from anything that's going on. It disengages them because it's not something that they can control. And so I was talking just a few minutes ago with someone who was talking about the fact that people who have a deceased loved one now create a fund, because what they're doing, it's giving them back control over an event and an emotion that they have. So this control thing is key. So now you're saying, right, so what does it have to do with it? What it has to do with is, I believe that if you create the right paradigm, then you can serve as a solution, not a solicitor. One more time. You get to be a solution, not a solution. Now, people who say that, they say, well, what's the solution? What they do is they create a problem that the person didn't know they have, and then say, hey, here's the solution to it. Okay? And you know what? I get that. You know how the whole sales thing goes. Disturb them, and then say, hey, here's what answers your disturbance there. I'm talking about something completely different. What I'm really trying to say is that when you kind of look at what clients are really trying to get, you look at why they're trying to get there, and then you set the table differently, you get a result that's fabulous. And so just a little preview. The preview is what it's about, since nobody has any heirs. What they're really trying to do with all of their wealth is benefit the beneficiary. One more time. benefit the beneficiary. And now you see where I'm going? You see, once we talk about benefiting the beneficiary, what we're actually saying is that those people who have wealth are really trying to get what? A return on their investment. A return on their investment. And you see now why you can compete with family. In fact, really, you can actually look at family in altogether different light. And so that's our theory. Let's see how I do. And so one of the things you're saying is, but Ray, does this result in anything? If I believe what you say, is there any evidence you can give me that it works and it works in a big way? Okay, I think I can. I don't know if this is working, so I'll just click down. So here it is. Here's a story. There was an heir. He was an heir because the person had died. He inherits the wealth. He was a professional, but he never could come to grips with one thing. As a professional, he didn't believe he'd earned the money, and he didn't know why he had been given the money. No purpose for the person who gave it to him, and he didn't have a purpose that he could think of. And so for 5 years, he came into my office, and all he did was try to figure out ways to bust up the trust and get rid of it. And I kept saying, well, we can't do that. It's your money. He says, well, I don't want it. I said, well, that doesn't work. And I said, well, what about your son? He goes, well, no, my son is a professional. He hasn't earned it either. And if we give it to him, it's just bound to be going somewhere that I don't want it to go. And I said, what you would expect me to say, just so you know I'm on your team. I said, but think about those charities. There's so many that have such, I'm just going to say what he said so I don't get in trouble for it. He says, Ray, do you want me to give it to the Red Cross so they can use it all up in administrative costs? I said, I don't know what the Red Cross does, but I don't know if they use it. I said, but that was his mindset. His mindset always got around this idea of purpose and return, impact investing. I know some of you have heard about. So, but the key was, one time he was walking down the street on the way to a meeting with me, actually at Northern Trust, and someone runs up to him and does what a perfect plan giving officer would do. Says, hey, by the way, I noticed you here. Me and my friend with the Letterman's jacket on here are basketball players, and we were wondering if you could give us some money for shoes because our team lost in the playoffs because our shoes kept sliding. And he told his story. And then my client told stories about how he loved the Bulls, and this guy told his story about how her team did this, and then my client told a story. You get it? There's a storytelling going on, and all of a sudden, he comes to my office, and he lights up. He says, I'll tell you, you know what? I don't know why we can't. Those kids should have shoes. They should have shoes because they're doing good things. These are the good inner city kids. These are the kids that we want to do. Why can't we do it? I said, well, that's fine. He says, but I'm late for. And that's what I did, what I'm going to urge you to do. I took the story and decided, you know what? We're going to run with this story because that's his purpose. We will energize him with purpose. And you know what he did? He decided, I want to put shoes on every single person that plays basketball for a high school in Chicago. And so I said, you know what? We will make that happen. So we set up a mechanism to do that. And for 10 years running, this article is from 2005, 10 years running, he put gym shoes on every single basketball player in Chicago. And impact, it was anonymous impact, but he wound up in People magazine with this Marshall team that went on to be one of the best schools, basketball teams in the nation. And all the time, this guy who was completely out of sorts about everything connected to his wealth, all of a sudden found it. But I'm going to tell you that that journey and how he came to that journey is the same journey that almost all of my clients face. Now, I know you're saying, well, Ray, what does Northern Trust have to do with this? And I'll tell you this. I have weekly about 2 conversations, average, about 2 conversations with people that have in excess of $10 million, where they have monies between 5 and 110, 300 million, where they literally have no idea what to do with it. You with me? No idea. And putting a box, a checkbox that says give to charity doesn't work. In fact, you know what I tell people? Don't use the C word in my meetings. Do not use it. The C word is charity because I'm going to show you later on. They think that word means solicitation because they just don't have it figured out as to what their real problem is. And see, that's what's going to happen. I'm going to help you introduce to them what their real problem is, and that's why you're going to be a solution. So the next thing that happens is you say, but Ray, how did this all happen? And what I want to tell you just quickly, really quickly, is that the reason why our clients got off the track when it comes to this whole idea of wealth and wealth transfer is because they began thinking that somehow if they could just beat the tax game, that that's what the goal of wealth was. And you say, well, Ray, I don't believe that. People know better than that. Well, yeah, no, they don't. And so what they did is they looked at wealth transfer, and they realized that, by the way, just to show you how smart our Congress is, Congress knew the very thing I'm telling you. Congress believed that large sums of money given to members of someone's family is not a good idea. Never thought about that, did you? They literally made that decision. And by the way, those of you who know estate tax know that estate tax is pure what? Wealth redistribution. That's all it is. If it gets high enough, it's not because we earn money on it, because as you know probably from other people talking about it, it's less than 1% of our government fisc. It's just not a relevant number in terms of things that we do. But the reality is, what's relevant is it breaks up swollen fortunes, is what the slide says, swollen fortunes. And that's literally what Roosevelt said, these swollen fortunes. Can you see all of our clients, with wealthitis, big swollen fortunes, And so this wealthitis they had to cure. And so they did it by creating 3 taxes. One was the death tax. Problem with the death tax is everybody gave away their money before they died. It's easy, right? I got 20 million. I just give it to you before I die. I didn't really want to give it to you, but if I'm going to die, I give it to you. The reality was, it worked so good that they decided, no, we better create a gift tax so that people can't give it away just before they die. And then people got even better and said, you know what? I got by the gift tax. I got by all that stuff. I'm just going to put in a big Rockefeller trust, and my kids will still get $10 million of income a year. And yes, I'll have to pay the tax the first time, but when my kids die and my grandkids die, they'll never have to pay another death tax. Wrong. They created the generation skipping tax. And so, the more complicated they got these taxes, I really believe this, the more complicated the taxes got, the more my wealthy clients figured it must be that Congress expects us to devote our lifetimes to figuring out how to get around this tax. I mean, it's complicated. It's in the news. It must be important. I have clients, donors, other people that are constantly asking me, so what do you think Congress is going to do? What do you think Congress is going to do? You know what I want to tell them? Anybody who tells you they know is selling something you should not buy. And on top of that, even if you were right, you'd eventually be wrong. And that's what I mean. If you were right about what Congress does, what that would make you do is the same thing you've been doing all the time, which is planning based on what Congress does. What you need to do is become an expert. See, when you have a meeting, Mrs. Donor, when you have a meeting with your experts from the not-for-profit organization, and they come as an expert on planned giving, you need to have 2 experts in the room. The expert on planned giving, yep, you. You need to be an expert on you. And that's what our clients are not hearing. And this is why you win. Because what you're going to do is push them to be experts on themselves. Once they gain that expertise of understanding their story, bam, it works. That's why as quickly as possible, you're going to try to divorce them of their idea that the real game in town is about saving taxes. So you say, Ray, this was just the point I needed to make, which is, let's say you played the game. Look how frustrating it is. Started out, EGTRA in 2001, and they said it's going to be repealed in 2010. My largest client, $100 million, died in 2010, didn't pay a dime of estate tax, but we spent 5 years talking about it, planning for it, missing opportunities to do planned giving, and talking through the idea. She had a need, but we were so busy focused on something else, we never got to it. All right, the other thing is that then you get this 2-year window, and that 2-year window is important for us because in 2010 they said, hey, you got 2 years, and if you give away $10 million, it's going to be free. But if you wait till 2013, that $10 million is going to cost you $4 million. 10 is going to cost you $4 million. So everybody who had $10 million should have done what, right? They should have ran out and said, oh, I can't wait. Congress said I can give you $10 million, Junior. Here's your check. Right? Wrong. You and I both know it didn't happen. Now, some people did set up stuff that they put trust, spousal access trust, those kinds of things. But it didn't cause the avalanche of outright gifting that we thought. And the reason is because all of a sudden, estate planners like me who were caught up in taxes discovered something. When you have a meeting with your client, here's what happens. When you're in estate planning, you look across to Mr. McGillicuddy, you say, Mr. McGillicuddy, now, listen, Mr. McGillicuddy, how much do you want to leave to your family? How much do you want to leave to, to your parents? You want to leave anything to Ohio State? Do you want to leave anything? Do you want to leave anything to your other alma maters? How about your church? Do you want to leave things? What do you want to do? And we keep saying, how much do you want to leave? Do you want to leave anything? You get the operative word? What is it? Leave. Don't use it again. Right? Why would you use a word to represent the most important planning opportunity the client has and use the word leave? A word that has no purpose, no direction, nothing. And I just, a little slide says it's to depart, to abandon. Why would we want our clients to abandon their wealth? Anybody here wants to abandon wealth? Is there anybody in the room that wants to abandon wealth? Good. Well, I think your clients are probably the same. They don't want to abandon their wealth. They don't even want to depart from their wealth, really. In fact, one of the things I do to illustrate this point just is, at Northern Trust, if you haven't got one, we got pens at the table there. And if we had pens at your table, and we handed out a pen to every person, and it was important to take notes, which it isn't, and the pen was there, by a show of hands, how many of you would take the pen? How many of you would take the pen? Beautiful, beautiful. Now, it's just great because the reality is I know something about you. You don't need another pen. And it gets better. Not only do you not need another pen, you already have other pens. And the reality is, if you needed another pen, you actually have enough money to buy one. So why are you holding on to a pen? In fact, we are so committed to the fact that you'll hold on to that pen. We have them in the back, and we have our name all over it. So when you hold on to it, you'll see us every time you hold on to that. What is that saying? It's saying that when you give someone something, they hold on. The natural human inclination is to hold on to what you're given. This is my little timer, so I don't talk too long. You hold on. The reality is when you hold on, that inclination can only be defeated by one thing: purpose, a reason. And of course, we go around everything but the reasons to give people to do it. And of course, the reason is going to be tied to something that you all are very good at talking about. So what really happens is, this kind of no strings attached gift, what it did is it kind of got these clients talking about things, but what they were talking about really wasn't anything that was particularly helpful to them. So the problem is, what they were talking about was planning. And I show all the different people. They were conscientious, but they were all concerned about Congress. What do I do? How do I do it? The conscientious ones wanted to talk to their attorney early. The ones who were really were procrastinators said, well, can I put this off for another 2 years? Do I have to do it this year? But at the end of the day, what we found out was this: people did not want to give Junior $10 million outright. They didn't. Now, I know you guys saying that's not a big deal. Yeah, it's a big deal because our tax system is based on the idea that everybody is trying to give away those swollen fortunes to the wrong people. And I guess they're thinking that because those people just haven't gotten educated on what I'm about to educate you on, which is basically, you got to think of wealth transfer differently. I'm going to give you two principles. Many of you have heard me say these before, but it bears repeating. Number one principle, you got to get to shift the paradigm. Shift the paradigm. Number one principle: all financial, personal wealth is transferred. One more time. All financial, personal wealth is transferred. Not some, no footnotes. It's personal, it transfers. Notice I didn't say everybody dies. Think about it. When you go and you do planned giving and you're talking about estate planning, that's why I hate using the topic estate planning. It's almost like death planning. We would like to come and have a meeting with you and talk about death planning. What? The reality is, why would you? Because think about it. When you go to someone's house and you talk and you meet with someone and you're talking about what estate planning is about, think about it. You're doing three things they don't want to do: die, give away their money, be worried about taxes. That's the trifecta of a bad meeting. That's the trifecta. So the reality is I'm going to change the paradigm. Why go and talk about something? Let's talk about something they are doing. Something they are doing. So what they're doing is they're transferring wealth. That's the second principle. All personal financial wealth is being transferred even as we speak. So the first thing I do to reset the paradigm is I'm not coming to talk to you about anything that you're not doing. You don't need to die to talk to me. I want to talk about planned gifts, but not about planning to die. I want to talk about the 3 C's. And basically, what we're going to tell them is that, you know what, there's 3 ways you give away wealth. 3 ways. by consumption. That's what everybody in America is caught up with, right? I get consumption. With consumption, you want to make sure that you have enough so that you can support your lifestyle for a lifetime. Lifestyle for a lifetime. Got it? Now, the theory of that is if you can support a lifestyle for a lifetime, then you start feeling emotionally good. Problem is, many of your donors, many of your prospects, many of your friends and colleagues that could be donors and prospects have never got the emotional closure around consumption. You can do it. At Northern Trust, we have forecasting materials that actually can show people, you know, if 50,000 bad things happen, you still have a 20% probability you'll still have plenty of money to live through. Really? And of course, this really works great for the greatest generation of people still alive who at least remember the Depression, right? I said, we show them, and everybody's got this software. I'm not trying to say that, you know, I think ours is a little better, but everybody's got the software. The reality is what are you trying to do with that? I'm not trying to tell them something they couldn't know. What I'm trying to do is give them some emotional comfort on the first C and get them to understand that we really feel, we identify with the emotional connection with your need to be secure in your consumption. We're Americans. We get it. But then we go to the second C. And the second C kind of gets us up to this, the main thing that I really think is a problem. And that is this. You see, we really like to talk about confiscation. Now, confiscation is this idea that someone's taking your money. And that's right. That's why it works so good. You think we're talking about happy. Us estate, no, I'm just putting myself, because there's some actually really, really good estate planners in the room, so I don't want to disparage them. But me, as a not-so-good estate planner, which is why I went to bank, as a not-so-good estate planner, what we did is we sat people down and we really got them excited about something they could control. And before we got them excited about what they could control, we told them what they weren't controlling. And what weren't they controlling? Confiscation. That's why I came up with that word. Confiscation. The government is confiscating your money. They are taking your money. And I guess what that hits to? Yes, that's right, control. Guess what that feels like? Unhappy. Guess what I do with unhappy? Yes, now would you like to sign this 45-page document? Oh, I'm sorry, that's just the introduction. The 85-page document that does your estate plan. And well, that's all right, fine and good. They might need an 85-page document. The point of it is what I created this idea that what you really want to be happy is to control something that you can't control now. And you didn't know it, but what is your biggest problem is a tax that you don't want to pay. They go, no, you're right. I don't want to pay a tax. I don't want someone to confiscate my wealth. By the way, that would be true. And taxes, 10 years as tax counsel, tax is good stuff to get angry about. That's what we focused on. But then, of course, you're already ahead of me and you're realizing there's another C there. That C is contribution. All wealth that's transferred voluntarily, that doesn't involve consumption, and it doesn't involve someone taking the money, is a voluntary wealth transfer, and that's a contribution. You see how I'm switching the game on them now? I'm saying, so the money that you gave to Junior, what were you contributing to? The money you gave to Susie, what were you contributing to? And most parents actually have an idea of that. So then why did you give Susie any money that wasn't designed to have some impact in her life? Well, no, I gave her birthday gifts, which I love you gifts. Great. Not here to talk against all of it. And sometime an I love you gift can be big, okay? Ask people who have paid for weddings. It can be a big number. But the reality is, at some point, you're past the I love you, the statement of I'm thinking of you, that kind of gift, and you're actually into this gift is supposed to do something. And that's why, it's interesting, this guy at Wells Fargo, who's done some studies, he actually says this. When you think about estate planning, especially trust planning, when you think about trust planning, what we really do when we create a trust for family members, we are trying to help them to be less unhappy. One more time. Think about it. Less unhappy. Because why would you put, if they were going to be happy by getting the money, just give them the money, let them go. But trusts are designed to say, no, they're not going to be happy with this money. We better put this standard on there. We better only give it to them when they need this. We better only give it to them if they need this. We better only give it, because you see, if we only give it to them when they need it, it'll be a benefit to them. But if we don't give it to them, if they actually are going to use it poorly, that would make it a detriment to them. And we don't want our wealth to be a detriment. So use a trust to make it less detrimental. But the problem is, as I've said many times before, if you have a trust, what do you call the person who is the object of a trust? Beneficiary. You want to give a benefit to them. So if you're not giving them a benefit, you're giving them a detriment. Well, that would make them detrimentiaries. Well, none of your clients are going to sign up to get somebody to be a detrimentary. Well, I'd like to have 2 detrimentiaries, please, in my trust provision. So what we do with trust planning a lot of times is to try to take away that detriment. And so what I say is that, traditional estate planning is kind of below level. It's below the sea level. And when you're below sea level and you're on the water, that kind of drowns you. And some of our clients kind of get drowned in the details, and I love details. I love to talk about clats, and I love to talk about cruts, and I don't get a chance to often talk about planned annuities, but I do talk about them. I love to talk about all the things they can do with all the things they can do. But I'm drowning them because I'm actually starting at a place where they're not. I'm inviting them to a conversation that they don't really necessarily want to have. I'm answering questions that they haven't asked yet. Kind of reminds me of the story I've told before, is that guy's sitting in the driveway of his home waiting for his wife to come down for a wedding that they want to go attend, and they're running a bit late, and he sends his 5-year-old daughter in to get mom and find out what's taking her so long. 5-year-old daughter comes back, gets in the car, looks at dad and goes, "Dad, what is sex?" Well, you can see the air go out of the room now. And so that was the same way it went out of the car. It's like, oh. So he was, had waited to have children. So being about, 23 or 25 or so, 30, he says, "You know what, I heard about this from my friends. This is the question I've been dreading. This is the problem. I'm going to summon all of my resources. I'm going to answer this right, and hopefully maybe mom will come before I have to answer the whole thing." So he launches in and gives her a 2-minute birds and bees. She looks at him finally with kind of a puzzled look. Dad looks at her and says, "Now, honey, does that help you with what sex is?" She said, "Well, Dad, Mom says she's going to be down in a couple of sex." Is that what sex is? Now, the reason why I want to leave you with that story is I really love the fact it was kind of embarrassing, because that's actually what happens when we get on the page of telling our clients that what they want to do is save taxes. That what they want to do, by the way, what they want to do is handle the needs of your organization. Your needs are important, but it ain't part of the story yet. You with me? And by the way, I know someone that's gotten up and told you that they've done studies that they're getting bombarded by messages, 10, 15,000 a day? A day. I mean, if you walk in this room, you look at everything that's telling you to listen to everything that's here to be an advertisement, just think about it. And now you're gonna win by making something a part of another. You got to do it. I'm just telling you, that's not where it is. It is in this above-the-line stuff, this values, vision, and passion. So you say, well, how do I do that? How do I uncover values? And here's the key. You see, you don't discover values by getting a checkbox. I'm gonna give you the answer and then work backwards. You discover values actually by getting what I call the herstory and the history. The herstory and the history. His story, her story. And by the way, since most greatest generation people married someone younger than them, men, and men don't outlive women generally, we die about 2 to 3 years before them. Really, if we're doing our job for couples, we actually should be getting the herstory first, right? Because if she's going to be the surviving person that makes the donation, it's funny. I appreciate you shaking your head about that, because that fact doesn't come out for a lot of people. I'm in meetings all the time, and they're just talking to this 75-year-old man who's sitting there with his 65-year-old wife who's looking much healthier than him. And I'm thinking, where are we going with this? Oh, well, I'm going to do this. But it's about control, and we can talk about that. But the reality is, you've got to get the story. And here's where the story reveals the values. Let me tell you about some values that we usually go after. Aspirational values. Oh, yeah, I really want to do this. Someday I'm going to be a great father. Someday I'm going to be, well, yeah, that's aspirational, because if you're not a great father now, it may be too late. Secondly, then we got the whole idea of the politically correct, values. Oh, I treat all of my kids equally. That's like I had 2 beers, officer. It's always a cover-up for a real problem, all right? Because you can't do anything. Time and space don't allow you to be the same to everybody. So then, those are kind of like political. But when you actually peel away their day and you look at their life, you actually will find that their values will jump out. That's what that guy did on the street. He didn't know it, but he started talking to my client about basketball. And he didn't know the guy was an absolute basketball nut. But when he connected. And he became a part of my client's story because he connected with my client's story. Now, the key is, it's interesting because this whole idea of the benefit to the beneficiary, I've mentioned it before. There's probably some hospitals represented here. The story I tell is my wife was really sick last year. She actually had a kidney and liver transplant at Northwestern Memorial. But there was a hospital in the suburbs of Chicago, and it used to be called Central DuPage Hospital. Central DuPage Hospital was a bad hospital. It was so bad, not only did you not get health care in there, they didn't even know that you needed health care. I mean, you would walk in there, it was like nobody cared about your health. And you walk around, and it was as bad as I'm telling you. And the bad thing is people didn't want to help you. They didn't know to help you. They didn't seem like they understood you when you talked. And it was just awful. You just can't imagine how bad it was. And we went back about 11 years later. We had all our children there. But then 11 years later, when my wife got sick, maybe 20 years later, we went back and all had private rooms. The private rooms had a spa bag in the bathrooms. It was the most beautiful. In fact, it is the best hotel money cannot buy. And so the reality is we were watching how people operated. And what I want to show you is how one word can change something. What happened is all the people, when they talked about the nurses, they talked about each other, they used a word related to what they were doing. And they call each other hospitality partners. Hospital, hospitality. Had you ever put those words together? Hospital, hospitality. For me, it was just like it's a prison system for sick people, right? That's what I used to think. Not anymore. They completely. Oh, by the way, in the rooms, when you order food, it's room service. It's a menu. It's complete. And what I'm trying to get you to do, again, trying to get you to have a radical thought here. The radical thought is you can change the way you think about this whole area if you will think of the benefit to the beneficiary. See, when you're thinking of heirs, you're going to go down the wrong path. An heir has an entitlement, and your client is sitting there, I don't have any kids, I was never married, I got to give something to my niece and nephew who already got more money than they need. I've been in conversations like that. Anybody join me in that? Someone who's talking about a niece and a nephew, thank you. A niece or a nephew, you're thinking, why are you going to do that? Why? But what then doesn't happen is someone says, well, what do you have any interest in charity? And that's the wrong question. What you want to do is tie in to where they're really going. And the big thing is let's look at the family for a second. Because what I want to do is tell you about the return, right? Because the end goal of all of what we're saying today, let me just give you the end goal. If you will start to do what I'm mentioning, you will create metrics for your clients who will now believe, and they should believe because this should be your goal, that you are totally committed to making sure that their family and friends get all the money that they need. You with me? You now are providing the solution, which is to help your clients give away their money to their heirs in a way that perfectly meets what those heirs need. Now I'm about to tell you the truth here. Here it comes. So what do beneficiaries need? What do those heirs really need? Let's talk about it. I got a fairly good group of grandchildren that I'm now kind of taking care of, or not taking care of, but seeing, hanging out with. And it reminds me of all the things that are true about me that I see in them. All right? I'll give you rule one, autonomy. So right now I have a little Zeke. Zeke is a handful. So Zeke is right here, and I say, Zeke, could you come up here and help me? Or maybe here, let's go down for a second. Zeke, come over here and help me, dump out this water here. Zeke, can you do that for me? And Zeke would come over, and of course he'd immediately tip the water over. He'd pour it and then start throwing it at you. Okay? Now, what I do is I come over and I'd say, Zeke, that's not really the way to do it. Zeke is about 3 or 4. What are some of the things you think Zeke might say to me as I say, Zeke, no, honey, you need to do it this way. What's he going to say? I did what you told me to do. What else? No. And why does he say no? He says no because what he's saying is, I want to be autonomous. What he would say is, I can do it. Thank you. I can do it myself. And guess what? Zeke is 4. It's still true at 40. It's true at 84. I can do it myself. Now you're with me. I can see the lights going on. I can do it myself. You see what wealth is going to do to that? So second thing, when I'm working with Zeke on this, and I said, no, Zeke, really how you do it is you hold the water up like this till we get to the garbage can to dump it out. He'd spill it, and then he'd go, you know what? I know how to do this. I know how to do it. I know how to do it, Papa. I know. What do our kids want? They want competence. They want to believe that they're 100% competent to do whatever it is they think they need to do. Just think about it. I can do it. I can do it my way. My way is the right way. And then finally, as Zeke is doing it, I say, well, you know what, Zeke? If you're going to do it that way, Zeke, if you're going to do it that way, I'm going back up here on this platform, and I'm not even going to be involved with you. I'm just going to go over here. What does Zeke say then? Good. He might say good. He might say good. I say, Zeke, I'm leaving. You can do that, Zeke, but I'm out of here. I'm leaving. I'm going home. I'm getting in the car. I'm taking off. What does Zeke say then? No, wait, come back. No, I want you to watch me. I want to be, no. It's no fun if you're not watching me. Come to the basketball game. Come to my soccer game. Come to my school play. Because I want to be related to you, and I want that relationship to count. There it is, autonomy, competence, and relationship. That's what they want. Now ask yourself, how does money help that? Answer, not much. So here's the question I'll pose to you that many of you have probably heard before is, look, well, I'll just pose it as a kind of a question for you to answer. When your friends and colleagues and prospects give money to children, let's suppose they have children, what is one thing that most people seem to really enjoy giving money to their children for? Be a number of them. Go ahead. Yell them out. Education. I heard someone. That's the right answer. That's the answer I was looking for. That's the right answer. So you notice that. Notice my point, right? Think about education. Why do they want to give money for education? Do you know why? Because of the benefit to the beneficiary. Think about it. They can visualize. They can see it. They can touch it. They can see him in that scarlet and gray. They can see him marching. They can see him coming down there. They can see the OH, the IO. They can feel him getting that job in engineering. They can feel. That's what they're thinking. They want to benefit. And that's why it's so easy to give that gift. Are you with me? That's why it's so easy to give the gift. Because, well, think about the other conversation. Let's just reverse the conversation. Junior, your mom and I, come on in, honey. Yeah. No, tell your 16-year-old friends to turn the stereo down. Come on in. Yeah, they can go home. We were thinking that we'd like to give you $200,000 starting on your 18th birthday when you leave the house that summer. Anybody want to have that conversation? Anybody volunteering for that conversation? But think about it. In effect, that's what they're doing. They're saying, yeah, we'll pay for Yale $50,000 a year for 4 years. But they don't do it the way we talked about. They don't say, I'll give you $200,000, good luck. They say, what schools would you like to go to? We hear that you can get into Harvard if you just crack down a bit, and we'll pay for that. You see the difference? The difference is everything. And here's what's really interesting about this. Our clients get excited about 529 plans. Do you know why? Because they're pre-funding a defined benefit for the beneficiary. Isn't it delightful? You can do that with everything. So here's what happens. If your client, let's say the kid, the client's kid, is really responsible at age 30, really responsible, got everything going for him, needs really no anything. It's just a great person and makes a lot of money. Well, does that person need $10 million? Does it help his autonomy? Does it help his competence? Does it help his relationship? I'm asking, what do you think? I don't think so. I don't think it really, I mean, it might be, it's like neutral, but it doesn't help anything. Okay, let's go the other one. How about the kid who's, the child who now is a drug addict, a gambler, and pretty much in and out of jail? Would that be a person who needs your $10 million? No, that wouldn't work either. How about the 50-year-old who isn't quite all together, but still needs some help with the little details of life? Does it make sense to leave them a $3 million fund for education? No. So what I'm trying to get you to see, as you begin to talk through the metrics, do you see what's happening? what's happening is you're creating this pool of money that the person, when I have meetings, they finally say, so what do I do with this money? That's right. And I don't say, oh, give it to charity. What I say is, well, let's go back, Mrs. McGillicuddy. You said that your husband, I'll just use the example I had at my table. You say your husband loved the Masons, that he started, one of the, the local charities for them, and he just loved everything. And you loved being a part of his life when he was involved in that, going to the this and the that and the stuff. You would tell me about that. Yeah, oh, I love that. How would you, if you were thinking about how you could really have a benefit in that area, what would it be? Well, if I could, bam. All I do is the same thing I did with that guy who came into my office with a dumb idea of giving shoes, gym shoes, to kids. I say, if that's where you're living, that's where we're giving. Okay? And, by the way, when you get people in the right temple or church or whatever you want to call it, when you get them in the right church, it don't matter, who's on that day. If you get people down the philanthropy path, then everything magnifies. You with me? Once I get them realizing that their story is important to giving, we've really set the stage for giving that goes across the board. Because they're going to say, well, by the way, I just gave the $5 million to the Masonics, and I met these kids that need scholarships. Well, see what I'm saying? How it all begins to build on itself around this purpose. And one of the things that you say, well, how do you get there, Ray? How do you ask the questions? How do you say the things? And my answer is, you plan by asking questions about their life. I've got a lot of those questions. If you really are struggling with that, I will, if you're willing to talk to someone from Northern Trust and tell them you need that, I will personally email some of those questions. I've got over hundreds, actually, of questions, and they are phenomenal. They come from an organization, some of you may be familiar with Sunbridge, and I'm happy to share them with you. But what they've done is a lawyer who has spent years, decade, working with clients and finding questions that unlock their story. You with me? Finding questions that unlock. Well, let me give you an example. What was your first job like? How did you feel when you made your first paycheck? Do you remember the first time you gave any money? What did it feel like? Why'd you give? Who'd you give it to? When you wanted to be successful, what did you envision when you were a child successful would look like? How does that look now? See what I'm saying? I'm pulling that story. I'm not asking, we're not talking about, we have 4 more buildings we're trying to build this year. And that's all, trust me, we're going to get the building money. Boy, how time flies when you're having fun. We're going to get the building money, but we're going to get it through their story and the questions that they're asking. So then the thing you want to do is you say, but Ray, how do I know? Give me a way that I can know that I've done what you've asked. Some of you are sitting there and you say, well, Ray, maybe I buy what you're saying. Maybe I really believe this. How do I do it? Now, here's what I'm doing. I'm going to play a trick on you. Estate planning and doing it well is an art form that, if you didn't hear anything else I say, hear this. It's an art form that requires really gifted attorneys. Okay? It's not only that you have to have an attorney, you have to have a good estate planner. It really does. And so what I'm going to do is I don't know why, but the last 50 years, we've conditioned a lot of wealthy people to recognize that they need to make trips to people like I used to be. That's good. So what I'm going to give you is a trick to turn this penchant that they have to, want to get their will done. By the way, do you know, one of the times that people it's kind of inexplicable. One time that people who are just living a normal life decide they want to get their will done, besides, births and changing locations. What's a kind of an inexplicable time that people just seem bent on getting their wills done? Anybody? Say it again? Yes, when someone they love, that's an excellent answer. What else? Illness, absolutely. What else? Another time that people just say, I gotta hurry up, I gotta get it done right now. Before they leave on vacation. Who said that? Thank you. Yeah. I'm telling you, if you've ever been to practice, check with some of the people in the room. As soon as people get ready to go on, by the way, you know what that's about? They're losing control in that airplane. You get in the airplane, you feel like you've lost control. I'm serious. It's about control. And that's why if you can give them a feeling of control over something, you win. You're the solution. So back to my story. If you have a client, let me give you some $600 an hour advice that you can give your clients for free. If they think that they're going to die by going on vacation, you can give them this advice. Don't go. Don't go. And the reality is that a lot of our clients use these emotional experiences as a catalyst to do something they don't want to do. Here's my point to you. Why make a client experience a death or life? Why not flip the script? Why not flip the script to talking about something they do every day? They transfer wealth by consumption, by paying taxes and other things that people take their money for, by kids who waste it that they don't want to waste it. Take all those things and then create the contribution element. And then when you say, now what are you contributing to? Let me give you a metric for that. Why don't we talk about benefiting the beneficiary? And all of a sudden, you see what I've done? Who are beneficiaries? You. Your organization is a potential beneficiary, and you have just as much claim to that potential status as the family does. You see how we flip the script here? You are now, and now, here it comes. Here's the punchline. Now, you say, you know, that makes sense to give Johnny $3 million. I'm not sure what he'd do with that. Do you know? Well, I'm not sure. All right, how's that feel? Well, it feels okay. I'm just not sure. Well, let's look at some other places that $3 million could go. And all of a sudden, we could take the $3 million at the hospital, at the community foundation. What happens there? Oh, this happens and this happens. You see the person change. Boy, impact there, benefit there, not so much here. Benefit there, I control that. I feel control. I feel control. I feel happy. I like you. When can I give? That's the goal. How do you get this all codified? By a statement of intent. A statement of intent is a written statement done by the individual that says what their life is and what they expect. It's not an ethical will, though they should do one. An ethical will is a letter to their kids. It's not a mission statement for their family. I like it, but sometimes families are hard to define. And I like all that, but what you want them to do is tell their story in a piece of paper that they're going to use for estate plan. And who cares whether it really gets in the estate plan? You just want them to think that they have to do it before they get on that plane. Right? You want to create their urgency of estate planning around something that actually will get them hooked on happy. The happy that comes when they do what you want them to do. And here's some examples of that. This one is, I acquired my wealth, transferring this just at age 60, and it talks about the trust is supposed to be a financial catalyst. I had some guy who actually did this just last week. He actually took my words. Wrong. This is the idea is to try to get away from boilerplate and actually say what you mean. This one comes better. John Gallo, who died last year, his family, very wealthy, and look at what they said. On the most basic level, the purpose of this trust is to further the pursuit of happiness by my... Can you believe he said that? What we're talking about today. Further the pursuit of happiness, and now he's going to define it. I use the phrase the pursuit of happiness in the same way as our founding fathers used it in the Declaration of Independence. Neither they nor I are talking about acquiring more material goods or taking longer vacations, but rather the sense of self-sufficiency that comes from emotional, social, and mental competence and giving back to the community. There it is. And it says, this is why I believe that travel, involvement in philanthropy, and education. Do you see what he's done? That statement of wealth, when you have someone who's just said what that says in their life, do you believe it's going to be a problem for you to be a solution for them? See how the table's completely turned? And this is your proof statement. This is your piece of paper that tells you, by the way, Mrs. McGillicuddy, I was noticing that you said something here about it's really important for you to give to the community, et cetera, et cetera. That's where it happens. So the reality is, it's all about the benefit to the benefit. This is an actual statement talking about certain charitable obligations. The reality is it's eminently important that you understand that by shifting the paradigm away from family being the entitled heirs to beneficiaries that create happiness by returning a benefit, you have created a playing field where you are likely to be the winner. I'm open for questions. That usually means it was either really muddy or really clear. Yes. Yes. Great. The question was, thank you. The question was, this statement of intent, is it a legal document? Is it a part of a legal document? Is it separately a legal document? What is it? Good question. And I'm going to say something for the first time in this group I haven't said before. The goal is for you to get the client to enter into a process where they understand the benefit to the beneficiary mechanics, and where they then begin to want to quantify that with a metric. I have found that when you talk about planning, that clients believe that they can document themselves out of problems that they talk themselves into. They behave themselves, right? So now I'm going to have a trust that solves all my relational problems that I behaved myself into. This is my behavior, but I'm going to fix it all with your trust, Ray. No. So what we're going to do, we're going to say, okay, what we want to do is if you believe documents are important, let's use that document to get some behavior from you, right? So what I'm saying, all right, documents important, and you're a legal person. Everyone says it's legal. Fine. We'll create a legal document, if that's what their buzzword is, if that's what motivates them, if that's what they're doing. We're going to do, and it should. I could spend an entire hour telling you why that statement of wealth transfer intent is perhaps the most important thing that should appear in a discretionary trust. In a trust that is designed to last a lifetime of an individual, having a purpose statement is so important that in most states right now that are governed by the Uniform Trust Act, that if you don't have a material purpose, they can undo it after you die anyway. Material purpose is used so often now in the changes that are going on in the area of estate planning that my admonition to get a material purpose statement is actually quite effective legally. And it's helpful to the trustees. But I'm telling you, don't get hung up on that. If the attorneys don't want to put it in the document, make your client believe it can go in there anyway. I'm telling you, it should go there. But if it makes the client do the right process, go with it. Beat that to death. All right. Other questions? All right. Well, you have been a fabulous audience. I thank you so much for all your time.
Wonderful presentation, and on behalf of the Plan Giving Roundtable, we would like to present you with a little small token of our appreciation for coming and
thank you.
speaking, and it's a certificate to apply to a charity of your choice.
Wow, that's great. If I can get Northern to double it. Thank you. Appreciate it. That's really nice.